technical elements of project management, of course, are important, but what will make a project manager stand out are the additional elements, communication and leadership.
You need to lead people as opposed to manage them. It's about empowering others to make sure the project is a success.
If you're going to be a kind of leader that leads by authority instead of leads by interpersonal skills, you're going to start to have trouble with your project team.
You're working with people, you need to move them
to understand people's behaviors and motivations and know why they want to do it.
Any team member, once he believes in what he is doing, he will do it much better.
Now we are moving towards servant leadership style, understanding other people and giving credit for the work they are doing.
This is something that you don't learn on books. This is something that is really up to your personal growth.
To know when to communicate and what to communicate.
To certainly explain yourself, but most importantly, to listen.
And communicating with stakeholders is just as important as communicating and engaging with your team members.
When you ask anybody, who's your favorite leader? They'll say Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, or Steve Jobs. Why? Because they could communicate well. They make the messages so simple. Without clear messages, nobody on the team knows what needs to be done. And people need to feel that security that we're all walking in the same direction and we're going to get results.
Greetings. My name is Lori Gacioch, and I'm here with Megan Speight from PMI Global. The session you are attending is called Allyship, Building and Supporting Communities with Project Management and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Efforts. We are here today to have a collaborative discussion about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what may be taking shape now and in the near future. We, as a global community, have shifted and are looking to the future. Now that 2020 is coming to a close, we're asking ourselves, how can we incorporate project management as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts to build supportive and equitable communities in 2021 and beyond? I serve as past president and director of diversity, equity, and inclusion for PMI Rochester chapter, as well as serve as an agile team coach at Wegmans Food Markets, where I am also a diversity, equity, and inclusion champion for the corporate organization. I've had a passion for and served in the project management profession for over 22 years, and just recently in the agile space for 3 years. I've served with my local chapter on the board of directors for the past 8 years and enjoyed every moment of learning and growing as a professional and human being by being part of this great organization. But serving in this profession is only a facet of who I am and my experiences as a person. Why am I here today with you? I am part of a multicultural family that has embraced me as a white woman where I am in the minority. There are many dimensions and complexities to who I am. I have been raised in an environment where I was exposed to different cultures, ethnicities, and backgrounds. I gained a great appreciation for diversity and embracing everyone for who they are. Life has really prepared me through family experience, the chapter, and my profession to be engaged in the DEI conversation. So how did I get involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion? And why does our chapter have a program? Well, let me tell you a story. About 3 years ago, in 2017, we held our annual Professional Development Day in May. After every Professional Development Day, we send out a survey to our attendees. This particular year, we received some pretty difficult to hear feedback about our choices for the entire speaker panel, which was primarily white men. It was pointed out to us that while the speaker panel, as well as most of the attendees, were of white ethnicity, in contrast, the wait staff at the conference center where the event was held was comprised of mostly people of color. This member shared with us that our choices of speakers that were leading this event did not reflect or represent the diversity of our community in Rochester. After reading the feedback, the board of directors, and especially our president at the time, Michelle Venezia, was greatly impacted by this feedback. Michelle came to me and asked me if we should do something, and I replied with a resounding yes. So Michelle appointed a director of diversity and inclusion, Wendy Ross, and we started down the journey. For about a year, we took the time to do some research, read, attend events with other community leaders about the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We met others who have had experiences on the journey, and we just wanted to get grounded in what our intent would be. The one thing I didn't want to do was come off with a false note. Wendy and I both knew how much we cared, but we needed to educate ourselves in this complex and broad topic. Wendy met a diversity and inclusion corporate trainer, Valerie Davis Howard, who had spun up her own consultancy around diversity and inclusion training. We brought her to our chapter for an evening session, and it blew our socks off. I'll never forget when Valerie asked us to rate ourselves on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the most aware of where we thought we were education and awareness-wise on diversity and inclusion. Many people saw themselves around a 6 or a 7. But when it was Wendy's turn to share, she said, I'm going to say 3 or 4. She felt that the more she learned about it, the less she really knew. And I felt the same way. Even after a year of us doing research and having experiences in our community and my family background, still didn't seem adequate in how broad this topic really is. After that session, we came to the place where we knew we needed some help to continue developing our program. We were asking ourselves what our objectives really were for the chapter. We asked for some guidance from some folks in the Society for Human Resource Management who helped us realize we needed to understand our membership and demographics. They helped us develop a survey, which we sent out to our membership and got some very valuable information. This helped us to start develop a mission, vision, and policy statement for our chapter. Now we had a foundation to work from, and we could then develop strategy and planning from there. In 2019, we held a professional development day that was themed diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you better believe that our speaker panel was as diverse as ever, representing our community and beyond. We had a powerful keynote speaker as well as a final session with a panel of diverse leaders who were men, women, gay, heterosexual, of diverse religions, ethnicities, and cultural backgrounds, all sharing about their experiences with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was one of the most amazing events ever in the history of our chapter. And so that's my story, Megan, and why I am part of the allyship conversation. And now I would really love to hear about what your story is.
Thank you, Lori, for the incredible start. Your journey and story are truly inspiring and motivating. As Lori said, my name is Megan Speight, and I am PMI's Public Relations Coordinator. As one of the many hats I wear, I'm on PMI's core diversity, equity, and inclusion team, as well as in the communications lead for the program. I'm proud to be here today representing global employees in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as allyship. Aside from my family, I grew up primarily around people who didn't look like me. I'm from a suburb adjacent to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the US. However, I had impeccable role models in my life that showed me the importance of an equitable world in which differences are respected and celebrated. I've championed for diversity, equity, and inclusion in both my personal and professional lives. And as a global employee, I use this lens to champion for an equitable future for all. At PMI, we believe that diversity brings value to our organization. In late 2019, the PMI Board of Directors recognized the need to reaffirm our commitment to diversity and inclusion. As we continued to grow and evolve, it became increasingly important that we solidified an equitable future for all by doing more in our communities. Over the past summer, the world changed. Our communities expected to hear from us, so we responded. In July 2020, PMI officially launched the Social Good Initiative in support of diversity, equity, and inclusion. and assembled a core team of staff who agreed to support this cause. Our mission? To ensure that PMI continues to maintain a global culture, recognizing the contributions and interests of our employees' diverse cultural and social groups. PMI has truly prioritized this program, but as a team, we wanted to ensure the work was done well and done right. We didn't want to just rush to be a part of the noise, but instead took our time to create a strong program centered on feedback from our volunteers and our staff. As a member of this core team, it has been an honor to see the feedback we've received internally from the work put forth by the team looking to make a difference. We've created spaces both electronically and virtually to allow for education and conversation, as well as seeing our senior leadership speak on the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, internally to staff, externally to our communities, and beyond our direct communities on the global level at the United Nations and other various global platforms. We're taking additional steps to keep the conversation going as we build out this program to encompass all aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion, internally, as well as to extend our reach externally. As a human, it's important for me to champion diversity, equity, and inclusion because I do see the good that comes from it, not just on an individual level within communities, but in order to be successful, we truly do need allyship across communities to champion for our future. So, speaking of allyship, Lori, can you talk a little bit about your allyship experiences?
Absolutely, Megan. And it's so awesome that our global organization is taking the next steps to build a stronger DEI global community. But within Rochester, the PMI Rochester community, to be specific, we saw a need to establish a safe space that would be welcoming and embrace everyone from all walks of life, which includes race, gender, sexuality, modes of learning, religious beliefs, and cultures. We wanted to open the door to everybody. Some of the ways that we started to do that was through learning about our own unconscious bias. We also started to partner with other organizations with the same goals and placing our project management volunteers with initiatives like the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative, like Volunteer Legal Services Project, the Villa of Hope, the Out Alliance, and the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce sponsored program called ROC 2025, where they have outreach activities to address building, educating, and employing stronger, diverse communities in Rochester. I'm also a DEI champion in the Wegmans Food Markets corporate organization, working with the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and other champions across the Wegmans enterprise as we continue to enrich and align our DEI goals and culture. So Megan, would you share with us what your allyship experiences have been?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. And the fact that you brought up safe spaces really resonates with me. Earlier in my career, I did have an experience as a direct manager who, quite frankly, didn't treat me the same as my white direct counterpart. We had the same job description and in essence performed the same tasks, but supported different areas of our organization. It was ingrained in me at a young age that as a Black person, you have to work twice as hard in anything that you do. I've always worked with this mentality. And with my role, it was really brought to my attention by colleagues outside of my team that I was being discriminated against. I didn't want to believe it in the moment because, quite frankly, I didn't want to believe it was happening to me. I received nothing but praise from my other managers, senior leadership within my organization, and others really started to take notice of my work ethic. However, I did notice that I was constantly getting inconsistent feedback on my work from my direct manager, and I could also tell that there was a different way in which my manager spoke to me and delivered information to me as compared to my counterpart. In the moment, I really didn't know who I could go to and was concerned about bringing it up to another leader for fear of receiving backlash against my manager. Well, at one point, my counterpart approached me and did so in the most genuine way possible, just sharing her concerns. She'd seen from the beginning what was going on and wasn't okay with it. We had a really eye-opening discussion, and from that point forward, she was there for me. We developed a stronger working relationship, which gave me a safe space to get information. And also, we developed an even stronger relationship where she spoke up for me. She gave me the information that I needed and did what was possible to prevent any additional discrimination from happening. The experience was truly an added driver as to why I champion allyship, equity, and specifically DE&I programs within organizations. So speaking of DE&I programs, Lori, what are your thoughts about building one?
Thanks, Megan, and thanks for sharing that very personal experience about allyship. That's an incredible example. So that is also a great question about building a DEI program. And really what I believe is that you need to have a foundation first. You need to know who you are and what you aspire to be as a program. You need to be clear about what your community needs and what your objectives are. And then I think at its core, it's about reaching out and building communities. It starts with a great diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that is diverse in culture, language, and background, and can start to reach out to respective communities and draw them in by talking about project management and its benefits and value. And by reaching out and including these communities and spending time sharing the world of project management, they can start to see that they're a part of the community. Also, education, training, leadership sessions on diversity, equity, and inclusion, engaging partners that have experience and have been leading discussions on this topic for many years are critical. They exist out there, but have not been engaged as a priority. Sometimes the corporate view on developing a program can get in the way of this being also an authentic experience. My opinion, DEI should not be measured. We're really missing the authenticity of relationships if we focus on measuring or checkboxes. Listening, relating, and learning is key. Everybody's story is unique. So when we talk about speakers like Brené Brown, who are talking about vulnerability, being real, the importance of talking about shame, and establishing relationships that are authentic, not focusing on checkboxes. This is what we need to focus on. The impact of engaging authentically as allies are socially far-reaching. I don't even think we can quantify these impacts just yet, but I know in my world here in Rochester, it's one authentic relationship at a time. I think we also need to be aware of bias. Awareness is really half the battle. We all have bias. It's human and normal. However, when you are aware of your bias, you really begin to shift and open yourself to new experiences by letting go of what you thought you knew. You will start to realize that there are others who share a similar story. So, Megan, what are your thoughts and experiences on building a program at a global organization?
Yeah, what you said really resonated with me, Lori. And to just build on some of what you said, specifically having that authenticity and really having a program where you listen to others is, my first thought is that this work isn't easy. You really, truly do need to have patience, understanding, and passion because you're not going to see change overnight. Again, in addition to some of the things that you already said, in my opinion, one of the most important things you can do when it comes to building a DE&I program, especially on a global scale, is to take accountability. Be open to an educating experience and acknowledging those who do have differences. Building a DE&I program means you're making a commitment to your community. I shared it a few slides back, but PMI CEO Sunil Prashara shared a pledge early on. It can also be found on our website in the CEO corner, but it's something that we really refer back to. We use it almost as our North Star as we continue to build out this program. If you know where you started, have that strong foundation, you can continue to build out a strong program that really reflects and pays homage to the communities that you're serving. Switching gears a little bit and speaking of communities, Lori, what are your thoughts on building communities?
Well, that's really powerful, what you said about Sunil's pledge as well, and it is a North Star. I think regarding building communities, one of the mistakes I think that people have a tendency to make is just to start acting outwardly without contemplating what an organization needs and what the vision is. What are your objectives? Think about your community. Ask yourself what you think the needs are. What are your policies? And if you don't know, the best thing you can do is find somebody who's skilled and experienced in this area and ask for guidance. Experts are out there in the community. They want to engage. They want to make a difference. And don't do it because it's the trendy thing to do. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Authentic change comes from the heart. And we have to reach people's hearts through sharing authentic experiences. And this is how we change minds. So with that, Megan, how do you see communities emerging around allyship and this topic at the global level?
Yeah, and Lori, you're just dropping so many gems today. It's incredible to be here to listen to you. But how I see it is that emerging communities won't necessarily reflect what we currently know. Emerging communities will truly reach across borders and cultures to bring people together. And in this process, allies should be open and willing to education and learn about what they don't call their own as we do look towards the future. Communities, whether online or in person, have a responsibility to make space for authenticity, a key theme that we brought up a number of times throughout this conversation. It is important because identity is so closely tied to belonging. However, the inability to be who you are really sometimes hinders any conversation around education or advocacy. So we do have to remember and hold true to the fact that who belongs can no longer be prescribed. We must hold a space and we must be vulnerable. And it's scary stuff, but as we come together, it's something that we can continue to work towards moving forward. So speaking of working towards things, moving forward, expanding, Lori, as a project leader, what do you think can be done in expanding the project management world to incorporate DE&I as well as to promote allyship in education?
Thanks, Megan. And I feel the same way. You're dropping so many gems that are just really opening up my mind and heart to some new things. I think as far as promoting allyship and education, we got to seek training on how to be an effective DEI leader. And that really aligns with project management because we are leaders. PMs are leading teams every day. We are setting the tone. We are global leaders. In this virtual environment, it's even more challenging to connect with others on a human level and assure that we're creating a culture and dynamic on our teams that is inclusive. I mean, with different cultures having different dynamics, for instance, there are practices that someone in North America may have that could potentially offend someone in India or Latin America. As leaders of global teams, we need to put the work and the care into understanding our teams and making them a creative and open culture of awareness, sensitivity, and learning. We all need to seek guidance, training, and education. So, Megan, what do you think can be done in expanding the project management world to incorporate DE&I and to promote allyship and education at the global level?
Well, I think that there are a few points that I want to make here, but one of the main ones where I think a lot of us need to start, and something that what my current VP always reminds of during our weekly meetings, is that as global employees, we need to think globally. We work in regions and, our mindset is, based in our regions and we're focused there, but our impact is global. So we need to switch mind frames and start thinking that way. In addition to that, I really do think that the project economy is the best way to move organizations in the world forward. PMI recently came out with the most recent Pulse of the Profession report, which, quite timely, focuses on the importance of social impact. A few key elements from that report I think really can help with expanding project management world and incorporating DE&I while promoting allyship and education. One of those items is the fact that we can turn social impact into a competitive edge. By generating positive social impact, it not only improves the communities that we live in, but it also can help companies boost the bottom line and retain top talent. Additionally, this report also found that social impact should be a strategic priority. By emphasizing careful, intentional planning and securing stakeholder support from inside and outside of the organization, it ensures positive social change is ingrained in the DNA of the company, which is huge. Lastly, another encouraging finding was that nearly 2/3 of organizations say their approach to social impact has improved over the past 3 years. That's huge. It shows that organizations are doing the work, acknowledging that they had somewhere to start, and it's also showing that the needle is moving towards working. It's great to see, people starting out. It's great to see people who have done the work, but it's also great to see that improvement.
Wow. Well, unfortunately, our session is coming to a close, and it has been a true pleasure talking with you about this subject, Megan. I have learned a lot from you and your perspective as a global employee. And we know that this discussion has been happening for a long time, and it really needs to continue. I think it's so important that even though there is a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion right now, the attention to it may start to wane while other topics take the main stage. But the important thing to remember is that the challenge of diversity, equity, and inclusion has existed for a long time. The conversation has been happening somewhat undercover and not so undercover in certain spaces for a long time. There are communities who are exhausted by the fight, while others are just getting started on the journey of learning the history. And we need to keep an open mind while we continue to hold dialogues, learn, and grow.
Lori, it's been a pleasure talking to you as well. You've pushed me out of my comfort zone, and you've motivated me to keep these conversations going. As a communicator, I find myself often plugged in to stay up to date on latest and ongoing topics and trends. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a consistently ongoing topic that I think we as a human race should address head on. We will always have diverse cultures, environments, and people, but as we work towards a more equitable future, we should always remember that diversity is a number. Inclusion, now that's the choice. What will you do to make that choice as we look towards the future? Thank you everyone for joining Lori and I today for this discussion. We welcome your questions at this time.
Hi everyone, and thank you for joining the session today. We have about a 5-minute Q&A session, so let's get started. I'd like to introduce Lori Gacioch. She has been the past president of the PMI Rochester chapter and is currently the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director for this chapter. In her everyday job, she is the Agile Teams Coach for Wegman Food Markets. And along with Lori is PMI's own Megan Speight, who is a Public Relations Coordinator and our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Team's lead communications lead. Woo, that was all a mouthful. So let's get started. We have a question here that comes to us, and the question is, what impacts do you think you've had on your membership and community with the DEI program so far? That question, I believe, is for Lori.
Hi, Tara. Thank you. And hi, everybody. So I think we are having an impact, and sometimes it's hard to tell, but we continue to have programming, DEI programming, spread out amongst some of our more maybe technical or leadership type events. And just looking at the engagement that we're getting, it seems that people are really starting to rally around the discussion and want to learn more. There was kind of a quiet period where I think because there was so much focus in the media on this discussion topic that people were kind of overwhelmed and sort of processing and ingesting all of it. But just recently, we started a DEI leadership series in our chapter. One of our volunteers is giving the series, and we had really good engagement. We had about 91 people register for the event, and the topic, the discussion, and the topic was really engaging, and there were some really good questions and discussions that came up. And when I took a poll at the end of the event and asked people why they were attracted to this event, they all said it was the topic. So we are having an impact. People are listening, and they do want to engage in the discussion, which is really good. Thanks.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, it's great that people want to engage. It's important today. So I have another question. It was in the chat. I'm going to just bring it up to Megan, who did answer it in the chat, just so everybody can understand. And the question is, will you be expanding your DEI statement to include people, staff, and clients with disabilities? Megan, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and give your answer for that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Tracy, thank you so much also for asking that question, and to everyone for attending today. That is something that we are, well, I don't want to say specifically that, but we are looking to expand our program in general to include those who have or are experiencing a form of a disability, and various different other topics within DE&I. For this initial start of the program, the focus was on racial inequities. However, again, we are building out our program. This year, our focus was really on an internally, and we were looking to, see where we started, listen to our staff, and to really just grow from there next year and beyond. So I do look forward to including other areas of this topic in regards to DE&I, and again, including that with disabilities. But please do stay tuned as we do continue to grow our program.
Awesome. Thanks for answering that. I appreciate it. Okay, we have we can take one more question. Okay, and the question is, we are beginning our DE&I initiative with a consultant. What would you outline as milestones to building a sustainable program? I hope we have enough time to answer this, but go for it, Lori.
That is a great question. And you know what? Just to be honesty moment, transparency, we're going through another shift of reinventing ourselves and our program at PMI Rochester. And so what we've done is we've reached out and aligned ourselves with a partner who has a lot more experience in defining DEI programs than we do, an organization called Calling All Allies, and it is led by Dr. Brandy Baldwin. She is currently, they are working with a lot of large corporations on their programming for DEI, but specifically they are developing a program for nonprofits and for PMI Rochester, or not PMI Rochester, but PMI chapters in general. And so they're kind of running a pilot with us, and they're going to be giving us some leadership training and volunteer training, and that's going to cascade to our members on how to be, inclusive leaders, diverse leaders, equity leaders. They're going to help us walk through that process. So as I was saying earlier in the presentation, we got to get help. We got to reach out to the people who have been a part of this discussion for a long time and are skilled and educated in this area a lot more than we are. We need help. We got to reach out and ask for that. So I would encourage people to, instead of just going out and reaching out to your community, do some research, take a pause, try to figure out what your objectives are and how you can really help your community, and reach out to some of those experts in the area already and ask for help and help you define what your program needs to be. Because I think in different geographical areas, it's going to be different needs. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks for the transparency, pointing out that you yourself are looking for others with more expertise to help you do such a thing. So I'm sorry, we have run out of time. I want to tell you, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to the speaker directly. There are handouts on the bottom if you want to download that. So thank you, everybody, for joining the session. After it ends, there'll be an evaluation. Please do fill that out. It helps us bring programs of value to you. And just want to let you know, these sessions will be on demand until 31st of January. And to keep your eye on the time and head into the main stage now for the closing session with Lori Hernandez, Nadia Camanici, and Sunil Prashera. Have a great day.